You think avoiding women is the secret to wealth? You're missing the point. You aren't poor because of who you spend time with, you're poor because you lack the discipline to master your own focus. In the modern digital landscape, there is a loud, insistent chorus of voices promising a shortcut to greatness. They tell you that your lack of financial progress, your lack of status, and your lack of purpose are all the result of one external variable: women. The logic is presented as a simple, mechanical equation. If you remove the distraction, you gain the time. If you gain the time, you gain the money. It sounds logical, almost scientific. But it is a fundamental misunderstanding of how the human mind functions, and more importantly, it is a fundamental misunderstanding of what Stoicism actually teaches. If you believe that your productivity is so fragile that it requires the total elimination of half the human population to remain intact, you haven't mastered your life. You've only built a cage. The Stoics, particularly the Roman statesman Seneca, understood the nature of distraction better than any modern influencer. In his Letters from a Stoic, specifically Letter 7, Seneca writes about the danger of the crowd. He warns that mixing with the masses inevitably leads to the corruption of our character. He notes that the things we hear and see in public spaces have a way of seeping into our own minds, stirring up desires, anxieties, and ambitions that do not belong to us. He famously writes, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." But notice what Seneca does not say. He does not say, run away to a cave and never look at another human being again. He does not suggest that the solution to a scattered mind is to surgically remove the people or the temptations that cause that scattering. Instead, he argues for the cultivation of an internal fortress. He argues for ascesis, the rigorous training of the mind to remain unmoved, regardless of the environment. When you blame a woman, or a relationship, or a social circle for your lack of wealth, you are engaging in a dangerous deception. You are delegating your agency to someone else. You are saying, I would be successful, if only they weren't here. This is a victim's mentality, even if it's dressed up in the armor of a high-value lifestyle. If your focus is broken, the problem isn't the presence of others, the problem is your lack of internal discipline. The Stoic principle known as the Dichotomy of Control is the antidote to this confusion. The world is divided into two categories: things you can control, and things you cannot. You cannot control the behavior of others. You cannot control the inherent allure of romance or the way social dynamics pull at your attention. These are preferred indifference. They are external variables. What you can control is your own judgment of these things. You can control your own reaction to them. If you find yourself constantly distracted, it is because you have not yet decided what is truly important. If your goal is wealth, or the mastery of a skill, or the building of a legacy, and you find that you are constantly being derailed, it is not because the world is too loud. It is because your commitment to your goal is too quiet. True discipline is not the absence of temptation, it is the presence of purpose. A man who has to hide from the world to be productive is a man who is terrified of his own impulses. He is a man who knows that if he were exposed to the things he desires, he would lose his way. That is not strength. That is fragility. Consider the person who spends their entire day grinding, but does so while feeling a deep, burning resentment toward the things they've given up. They aren't focused. They are simply waiting. They are waiting for the moment they can stop working, waiting for the moment they can return to their distractions. They are physically present at their desk, but mentally, they are still chasing the validation they claim to be above. This is where the focus audit comes into play. For the next 7 days, I want you to be brutally honest with yourself. Track every hour of your day. Don't just track the hours you spend talking to women or scrolling through social media. Track the hours you spend thinking about them. Track the hours you spend worrying about your status, or feeling lonely, or obsessing over why you aren't where you want to be. You will likely find that the distraction isn't a person. The distraction is your own internal dialogue. It is your own restlessness. It is your inability to sit with yourself in silence and work on something difficult. If you remove the women from your life, you will still be the same person. You will still have the same wandering mind. You will still have the same habit of seeking dopamine hits in the wrong places. You will simply find new distractions to fill the void. You will obsess over sports, or video games, or status, or money itself. You will trade one set of shackles for another, all while maintaining the illusion that you are leveling up. The modern cult of avoidance suggests that if you just strip away enough variables, your life will finally align. But life is not a math equation that simplifies as you subtract. It is a complex, chaotic environment. The Stoics knew this better than anyone. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, spent his life in the middle of military campaigns, political intrigue, and the constant demands of the Roman Empire. He did not have the luxury of monk mode or the ability to delete his social circle to focus on his meditations. He had to find his center while the world was quite literally burning around him. He understood that if your peace of mind is dependent on the absence of noise, you will never have peace. Seneca reminds us that we must retire into ourselves to find stability. But this is not a retirement of avoidance, it is a retirement of reflection. It is the ability to walk through a crowded room or to interact with the world and remain entirely unmoved by the chaos. It is the ability to say, I see this person, I see this temptation, but it has no power over my purpose. Wealth is not a prize for those who hide. Wealth, in the Stoic sense, is the byproduct of a life lived with intentionality and self-mastery. If you want to become rich, stop looking for external hacks. Stop looking for ways to cut corners by cutting people out of your life. Consider the nature of your ambition. If you are building a business, an empire, or a legacy, you are building something that exists in the real world. If you are terrified of the real world, if you are terrified of the people in it, how do you expect to lead, to negotiate, to manage, or to influence? By retreating, you aren't just losing access to half the population, you are losing your ability to interact with reality. You are effectively training yourself to be a recluse, which is the antithesis of the leadership and influence required to build true, lasting wealth. Instead, start by mastering the one thing that has actually been holding you back all along, your own mind. The discipline you are looking for isn't found in a rulebook about who you can talk to. It is found in the quiet, agonizing work of choosing your duty over your desires, every single day, regardless of the environment you are in. If you have to isolate yourself to succeed, you haven't mastered your mind, you've only built a cage. And a man in a cage, no matter how much money he accumulates, is still a prisoner. Why do so many men fall for this trap? Because it offers a false sense of control. It is much easier to blame a woman or a relationship for your lack of focus than it is to admit that you simply lack the willpower to sit down and do the work. It is much easier to blame external factors than it is to look in the mirror and realize that the person who is most interested in your distraction is you. Stop blaming the distraction. Stop looking for a shortcut that requires you to shrink your life down to a manageable size. Own your focus. Own your impulses. And when you finally reach a point where you can stand in the middle of a storm and remain completely still, you will realize that you never needed to run away from the world to conquer it. Think about the most successful people you know. Do they hide in rooms, terrified of social interaction? Do they treat human beings as variables to be deleted from their spreadsheets? No. They understand that their focus is their own responsibility. They understand that if they are distracted, it is because they have allowed their attention to be stolen, not because it was taken by force. You win when you realize that the obstacle is not the world, or the people in it. The obstacle is the part of you that is not yet fully under your own command. Once you master that, the world no longer dictates your progress. You do. That is the only path to true, enduring success. Everything else is just a distraction from the work you are afraid to do on yourself. The path of the Stoic is not the path of the hermit. It is the path of the man who can stand in the marketplace, interact with the world, and still remain entirely committed to his duty. It is the path of the man who knows that his wealth, his status, and his character are not built by what he avoids, but by how he chooses to act when he is standing right in the middle of the fire. Stop looking for the exit. Start looking at your own internal architecture. Build a mind that is so strong, so focused, and so disciplined that it doesn't matter what is happening around you. That is the only way to achieve greatness. Everything else is just an excuse. And excuses, no matter how sophisticated they sound, will never pay the bills. They will never build your legacy. They will only keep you waiting, forever, for a version of your life that you are currently too undisciplined to create. Take responsibility. Stop the blaming. Start the work. The world is waiting for you to stop hiding and start living with the kind of focus that cannot be broken by anything or anyone else.